I'm Judy Murray, and I'm often asked, what is a driving force? Well, it's something or someone who has the power to make things happen. I've seen firsthand just how far we've come in terms of levelling the playing field for female sports, and yet we still have so much ground to cover. On this journey, I'll meet some of our most successful sports stars, from football, rugby, netball, athletics, boxing, horse racing, and motor racing, and hear stories of dedication, determination, resilience, and exceptional skill. My aim is to look at where we've come from, where we are now, and at what the future holds. If you can see it, you can be it. Denise Lewis is a true role model and a national treasure. She's an Olympic and Commonwealth Games gold medalist in the heptathlon. She's now a hugely popular TV pundit and president of Commonwealth Games England. Can't wait to meet her. Can't wait to hear her backstory, because I remember her winning that gold in Sydney and she inspired me.
Denise is the queen. Simple as that.
I remember making that decision, watching Sydney Olympics in that moment and going, I want to be Olympic champion.
When you think sport and you think achievement, you think Denise Lewis.
What I think Denise did was she gave permission for women to not just feel that they were going to do something that Daley Thompson did, that they were doing something that Denise Lewis did.
She took it and made it her own thing, so she wasn't a Daley Thompson clone or whatever, she was an original Denise Lewis.
She's done so much, not just for the world of sport, but for all of us within TV, media, and everything that we're covering.
When I was tidying her room one day, I noticed in a book she'd written, "One day I'd love to be at the Olympics." You don't expect it to come true.
Denise Lewis, welcome to Driving Force. Where do I start? Shall we go back to the beginning? Tell me a little bit about your family and your earliest childhood memories.
Wow, well, my family, for me, consists very much of the woman that's been central to my life. My mother, very small family, I'm an only child. Me, my mom, we just did our thing. We're very much a team, which was very important. My mom worked full time, so it meant that I felt like I had to step up very early and be responsible and be trustworthy. Can you imagine what it would be like as a single mom in the 70s? Not easy. She would have felt a little bit of a stigma attached to being a single parent at that time, especially coming from a Caribbean family. There was a sense of, I guess, shame, to be quite frank. I think my mum took all of that on as a teenager, which she would have been by the time she had me, and just said, look, okay, this is mine to own. I've got my beautiful daughter. No one's going to take her away from me, and I'm going to do the best I can possibly do to give us a life that I'd like to have.
Well, she tells me I was a strict mother. I don't know about that, but I always had high values because my grandma, she brought me up, and she had good morals and came on to me. So I tried to give that to Denise as well.
Did she also instill in you the love of dance and song and music?
Yes, even though my mum is a very shy individual, but we always had music on in the house. That connection between the Caribbean, so we listened to a lot of reggae, and yeah, that dance. She always wanted me to do dance, so I did ballet from the age of 3. She wanted me to be into something, so that was my first start of getting into just activities, really.
When did the love of athletics kick in then?
Watching the Olympics, 1980. I was just wowed by the performances of the British athletes then. And I guess at school, my primary school, I loved running, and that feeling of being alive and running and just testing myself, really. I really enjoyed that.
The 1980s was a real golden era for British athletics, wasn't it?
Very much so. And hence, seeing so much success on the track really did instill that there's something else out there.
This time they're away, and what an opportunity for one of these men. And he's the Olympic champion.
I didn't realise there was something that big that I could get involved with. So that was me saying to my mum, Mum, I would like to be an Olympian.
When she won Superstars at her junior school, she went to Aldersley for the first time, which is our local athletics club. And she came back full of the joys of spring, exciting. She went on this funny track that you have to have special shoes, and she was just buzzing.
My first coach, Bill Hand, rest his soul, was instrumental to keeping me coming back week in, week after. He made it fun, it was enjoyable, and those 2 hours of training just used to fly by.
I think for a lot of girls, a sporting environment can be quite intimidating to join, particularly when they've got all these messages in the playground about sport isn't really for girls, and you've got boys playing football in the middle of the playground and girls are kind of pushed to the margins. It's manspreading at primary school, and it's happening at every playground across the country. So for girls to be able to get over that initial hurdle and be confident enough to go to a grassroots sports session is difficult in itself. You really need to have a supportive coach that's going to greet them there and make them feel welcome.
We were like family to him, and he adored Denise, and they got on really well, and that's where it kicked off.
We moved closer to where the facility was, which meant on the days where I possibly couldn't afford the bus fare, that I would walk. It was very easy in the end, and I think probably one of the key reasons why I stuck at it.
So who would be the role models for you around that time?
Well, there was a local athlete that, I knew very well. I watched her on the track, and everyone said, she's a Great Britain athlete, Sonia Lanneman. She was a sprinter at the time from Birmingham.
To Sonia Lanneman. Lanneman's going to take it. Lanneman won, got up to a slick piece of running by Sonia Lanneman.
There was obviously Tessa Sanderson, who won gold at the 1984 Olympics, and she was from Wolverhampton, my hometown. So seeing that, women that looked like me, that were excelling, that was just golden.
So there was sprinters, there was javelin thrower, and there was Daley Thompson.
Obviously, there was always Daley Thompson. How could you miss Daley Thompson? He was just such an iconic figure at that time, larger-than-life personality, and just incredibly good.
I happened to come up in an era when athletics was at its very, very peak. The country really needed a sport to step up. It was an honour just to be in the company of those guys, because they are all-time greats.
We woke up in the night to watch. She'd go to bed early. I mean, I wouldn't have to say, go to bed. She went to bed and she said to me, wake me up when it's coming on. So we used to wake up in the night when obviously broadcast was far away.
I needed to move on. I needed better instruction, better coaching, and a facility that would cater to my needs, really. So hence the move from Wolverhampton to the bigger club that is very recognisable of Birchwold Harriers. In that decision-making to move to Birmingham, we had the logistics. It wasn't a walking opportunity to the track. I would have to travel from school, take the school bus, jump on a train to Birmingham, and then take another bus to Perry Bar, which I guess was about an hour and a half. My mum was a little bit reluctant, but she understood that it was potentially vital for my progression, and so she had to trust me and the team that were there at the time.
She always wanted to do stuff and do it as well as she could, and she was always enthusiastic about doing things.
I sort of moved towards heptathlon sort of in late teens. I wanted to be a long jumper, hurdler. I went to English school, so I had a natural pathway through the system. But because I was such a regular club athlete, I loved competing for my club. I ended up doing different events for them. People would drop out at the weekend, so it would be, Denise, fill in for the high jump, or Denise, can you do a javelin throw? and I was actually quite good.
And who was the coach there that took you under your wing when you changed clubs?
It was one of the coaches who used to coach locally. His name was Darryl, and he saw that I was a little more capable, that I could be a really good long jumper, and subsequently enter into heptathlon. I was very lucky, very fortunate that my coach understood the challenges of our financial situation. So he would dip into his own pocket and help out and try and support as much as possible. She needs to be in this competition. I often used to hear him say to my mum, and she would like, well, okay, you can do this, but sometimes he'd just go and pay the entry fee and just took care of it.
The longest supporters and the greatest sponsor any athlete has from almost any era are your parents, your family, the people that dig deep into their pockets from their disposable income to allow you to do what you're doing, and sometimes to make some big career choices and sometimes some quite serious sacrifices, and that falls across other family members as well.
I had to take another job to help so I could travel with her, because it's my choice to want to travel with her.
Time and time again, if you go back into the history of those that have reached the highest echelons in their sport, you will find one continuum.
It was tough, but I've survived. We've survived.
Was there any one competition as a teenage athlete that made you or reinforced your belief that you could be really successful?
I think in my teens, it would have been the English schools. Even when I used to get beaten, I wasn't an exceptional junior athlete, but I was always in the mix. But that internal hunger to be better, I think has always been there. It's always driven me onwards, searching for more and how I can unlock my own potential.
Coming up next on Driving Force.
Going to the Commonwealth Games in 1994, I won a gold medal there.
And I really remember watching Denise thinking, she's got something there and we're going to see something.
Keep it close. 8, 7.
So you come out of the English schools with a belief and a desire to get even better. What's the next step in terms of a competition goal, a major competition goal for you?
European Junior Championships. I didn't do particularly well. By my standards, I wanted to be a medalist, but I finished 5th. I had sporty friends, but I was the only one really that had my eye on a bigger prize outside of school. I just thought there was got to be more than a life in Wolverhampton. My mum worked very hard. She worked 2 jobs often. Seeing my mum's resilience and tenacious ability and the way she dealt with everything that was going on around her, knowing how, I guess, financially strapped we were at times, gave me an enormous sense of pride. There was a sort of a next level of respect that I had for her, because I would hear her crying every now and again. She was very much alone. She had support of my grandmother, but she really was independent.
It was tough. It was really hard. When I mean, at the time, you do what you have to do and didn't think too much of it. But looking back now, I just think, how on earth did I do that? Because, you know, you have to make everything squeeze and stretch. You know, it was hard, tough.
It was just her sense of, I have got to overcome, I have got to keep pushing forward. Subconsciously, that must have trickled in somewhere. And I've had to do that several times. I mean, one incident I recall was my injury at, I think I was about 17. I had a career-threatening injury to my knee, and I thought that was it.
Gosh, that was horrendous. Just support, basically, because you can't say anything that's going to make it better.
I could have given up at that point, potentially. or taken a different route, but I wanted the best route to get me back on track as quickly as possible.
That was the first major injury that she had, and obviously not knowing anybody who could help.
Was there support for making that happen? Was the EIS in operation at that point? No.
The life before EIS, you had to really be thinking on your feet. You were the orchestrator of getting things done. Our success, the Great Britain's success that we've seen at the Olympics, Paralympics, is down to support, down to funding, which is, it's right. But for me, I look back at my career and I can sit there, not smugness, but I did do it.
You did it without all that?
Without all of that, to a degree.
When I first came into the sport, there was no sponsorship. Mercifully, the sport became open. Athletes were then able to openly and publicly get financial reward for what they were truly very talented at. And now, of course, the sport is, you know, if you're good enough, you can earn, and if you're really good, you can earn pretty well from the sport.
Athletics, it always seems to me, is pretty much a 50-50 sport. The women can compete in just as many events as the men. The prize money is equal. What was it like in your day?
Because we had a lot of successful men in our sport, it was very male-heavy. The Daley Thompsons, Seb Coe, Ovett, Steve Cram.
This is what the Olympics is all about. It's one moment to deliver your very best.
Were there any female coaches that you could speak to if you had concerns about anything?
No. No female coaches. I remember having quite severe menstruation problems, a very bad backache, fatigue, doubled over, so the hot water bottle on the tummy, just get on with that. I don't think I even had those conversations with my coach, if I'm honest. So you just battle on. I was very conscious when I entered sort of the senior team that I just didn't want to be there to make up the numbers. Thankfully, we had Sally Gunnell doing really well, but I did feel that sense of responsibility that I was part of a new wave of young athletes that were coming through, and I wanted to stamp my authority in a big way. Going to the Commonwealth Games in 1994, I won a gold medal there. Much to a lot of people's surprise, and maybe mine to a degree, but it really reinforced my determination to unlock more of my potential.
Now come on, Denise. Every 0.1 of a second is important in terms of points.
Denise, in competition, doesn't normally smile. She smiled and jumped in the air, and that, for me, was the sweetest moment in her career.
The Commonwealth Games are just so key for, you know, those early sort of confidence and that building and just what you learn from it. And it's about pressure, it's about expectation and whether you can deal with that. And I really remember watching Denise thinking this is her first real major. And I do remember thinking she's got something there and we're going to see something.
I think the Commonwealth Games is often seen as that first stepping stone for an athlete. You know, it's a multi-sport event against some of the key nations in the world.
For track and field, some of the big indelible moments in my sport have been at a Commonwealth Games.
The Commonwealth Games is huge for every single athlete, and I think what it does is actually provide you with massive amount of experience. And with the Commonwealth Games sitting 2 years out from Olympic Games, the preparation is key. It really is. There's lots going on. So if you can know you can compete under that environment, then that gives you a huge stepping stone to competing under the environment at Olympic Games.
I remember heading into the 1996 Olympics and knowing that was 18 months away, knowing I needed to have that experience of travel. I'd never been to America before. I knew that it might give me an advantage. And again, I've seen Linford Christie, Colin Jackson, they were always jet-setting and training abroad 3 times a year, and I had none of that. People hadn't heard of me before, you know, the Commonwealth Games, and so I didn't want to be, you know, that shooting star that was shine bright for one event and then just disappeared. I wanted to back it up. And the Olympics were important for me to back it up. I had an incredible 2 days, not for the right reasons. I was overawed by the intensity of those Olympics. We're in America, we know the Americans get behind their team. I didn't have that sense of belonging that I thought the Olympics would give me. I didn't perform particularly well in the heptathlon, but that need to do well, to leave with something to show for my endeavour was always in sight. And so I came to penultimate event, which is the javelin, threw out of my skin, you know, big performance when I needed it, and was catapulted into bronze medal position.
When I was tidying her room one day, I noticed in a book she'd written, "One day I'd love to be at the Olympics." That was a young child's dream that I don't care who you are as a parent or friend, you don't expect it to come true.
My driving force at the time, I wanted my mum to be proud of me. I wanted her to realise that her sacrifices and commitment and dedication weren't going to waste. I wanted to be able to be in a position that eventually I'd be able to take care of her the way she'd taken care of me. The next 4 years was a pursuit of that gold medal, followed by 2 World Championships where I came agonisingly close. So 2 silver medals, a European gold medal, which I was really pleased about. I retained my Commonwealth title in '98, and then it was the build-up to Sydney. The changes I'd made, I'd changed my coach, I'd moved from my training base in Birmingham to Holland. I really got to know Denise Lewis, the athlete, in those 4 years, from Atlanta through to Sydney. I needed more. I'm greedy. I just needed more. And it's that pursuit of, I'm not saying it was even excellence, but it's that pursuit of knowing there's better. Why wouldn't you seek that?
And you have to be selfish, don't you?
You have to be selfish.
To be.
The coach I needed to make me better, mentally tougher.
Was that
and stronger.
Charles Van Comenie?
Charles Van Comenie. He wasn't a very well-known coach, but I really got a sense that he spoke the language that I needed. After the World Championships in '97, I just joined his team at that point, and he said to me, "You didn't win silver, you lost the gold." Yes, you're right. And I don't want to repeat that.
Coming up next on Driving Force.
When I heard the announcement, Denise Lewis from Great Britain and Northern Ireland is the Olympic champion. Exhale.
I remember making that decision, saying, watching Sydney Olympics in that moment and going, I want to be Olympic champion.
You're going into the Sydney Olympics and you had some doubts, and the doubts were caused by an injury.
8 weeks before the Olympics that she got injured, and from that moment on, my heart was always in my mouth.
Charles has made it very clear that if we were going to go for Sydney, once the doctor said, look, there is a slim chance that you could make it there, you have to commit yourself mentally and physically to the cause.
The way I think about injury is there are 2 components of equal importance. There's the physical rehabilitation, and then there's the psychological rehabilitation. The individual's appraisal of the challenges that they're faced with, whether or not they've got the confidence to cope with what's thrown at them, all of those things make it a really sort of messy picture. And that's why it really should be taken on an individual by individual basis.
I went into those championships 70% fit. but I knew I had the mental fortitude and toughness to be competitive. I was there for the battle.
And it was a battle that you ultimately won. You didn't know if you'd done enough to get the gold.
That's right. There was still a sense of relief because I'd got myself there.
You completed it.
I completed it. And so when I heard the announcements and when I saw my name go up there and the announcer said, Denise Lewis from Great Britain and Northern Ireland is the Olympic champion. Exhale.
Denise went through that gold medal with, you know, in so much pain and agony, but perseverance as well.
When she came home to cross the finish line at Sydney, she had a bandaged up leg. You know, this is someone who is seriously tough. And at the same time, she's bringing all the flair and all the fleek, and she looks amazing.
She probably wasn't in the greatest shape that she's ever been, but pulled herself together and really gritted it out and showed what a terrific champion she is.
It was a fabulous mixture of raw talent and a mountain of raw bravery to do what she did. And that, for me, look, the Olympic Games sets the seal on a career.
I remember making that decision, watching Sydney Olympics in that moment and going, oh my God, what a race. And then at that point, I was like, I want to be Olympic champion. And what does it take? And I started changing my attitude and what I want and what I need to do. It's a moment of our lives where we saw a point and go, I want to become like them.
When did you phone your mum?
My mum was there.
Your mum was there, I love it.
My mum was there, as she always was at my major championships.
I sat in the Olympic Stadium and my heart just, sometimes I felt it stop beating.
It was always special to see her in the stands. Because that connection, I can't begin to just tell you, just seeing her there made me feel at peace, that no matter what happened, win or lose, I'm still me. So that pendulum that you have, and I've had the highs and I've had the lows, but that central sense of who I am, I always see my mom, and that gives me that affirmation that I need.
Very emotional. Emotional to see my little girl standing at the top of the rostrum after all she's been through. You can never describe that feeling to anyone. You have to go through that yourself. It's amazing.
It is so important that in moments, the biggest moments in your life and the moments of extreme pressure are when you need the most emotional support, and nobody knows you better than your parent.
You're a performance mom, yeah? You're a coach. You understand that. So you will find the words that to say or not to say in those moments of high pressure. Her serenity gave me peace and centralised me. And I remember that hug, that kiss, and that sense of, you know, there were no words really. That look in her eye just said everything. Everything I needed to know about what I'd just achieved.
So you made her proud, which is what you set out to do.
Yeah, I did.
I love it. So you get back from Sydney with your gold medal. You are the poster girl of British athletics. But how did life change for you when you're suddenly in the public eye like that?
At first, I absolutely loved it.
Please welcome Denise Lewis.
Denise has a particular quality that enabled her to be a national hero, a poster girl for the mainstream sports audience and sports fans.
She always had a smile on her face and always had time for people.
What it's done for Wolverhampton really is
great.
put us on the map, and that's what really helps.
She can come here and have discounts on my stall anytime.
Well done, Denise. What a woman.
And then it was sort of, okay, well, I'd like to retreat now, but there's no retreating. That's it. You are thrust into the media spotlight. You know, everything is examined. You know, stories even started to emerge that I didn't think were necessary. So it was, again, you know, trying to find my father. You know, this is like, really, come on, you could do better than that. And so it was like, okay, I need some downtime now. I need to just go back to being me.
When I think back to Denise winning that gold medal in Sydney, you know, she was the only female athlete that won a gold medal at the athletics. Despite being this queen, this national hero, was kind of left out in the wilderness.
That was a very dark time in Denise's career. She had no support from British athletics, I don't feel.
The competitions come back around very quick and fast. You know, next year it was World Championships. And I wasn't ready mentally for what was about to happen. Now that you're a champion and a winner, you have to keep winning.
Do you think that's changed or improved nowadays?
I don't. I still hear from athletes that are struggling post-championships. I think it's challenging, and striking that balance is really hard. But it is down to the governing bodies to reach out. I think they could be doing that more so.
Did it ever put you off from taking on another 4-year cycle?
No, because I was an athlete. Being an athlete defined me. You know, that was my wake-up call. That was my why. Post-Sydney, I wasn't comfortable taking my foot off the gas because I was more fearful of what people expected of me. I need to keep going and not tuning in to the body, to my physical and mental state.
As an athlete, it's really tough to be able to know, like, you know, do all the training, everything, and then at the moment to get it right. And I think it's all in the mind as well as physically. Going into the Olympics, I knew I haven't done enough work because my body hasn't allowed me. And you go into, you push, but you so want it. You put it on the line, and it wasn't good enough. And then at that point, you're like, oh, it hasn't happened. What do I do?
When I announced that I was pregnant, it's well documented. It didn't go down particularly well. My coach wasn't very happy because it wasn't on the performance plan. So I felt very alone during that time. And
were you disappointed in their attitude?
Yeah, I was disappointed, but I had no reference point to thinking, well, so-and-so has been an athlete and mother, combining the two. It was just not a conversation.
Historically, there was a distinct lack of maternity policies in sport. In my experience of supporting athletes who have had to make this decision, it's often approached as a goal.
Society as a whole needs to adjust so that it isn't such a challenge for women. It's not an abnormal thing for women to be able to do that.
Everybody knows about Serena Williams's experiences and her ranking deduction, for example, when she came back. This is the absolute time when people need that advice.
We went our separate ways, and I was coachless. That was challenging, and I know I'm smiling now, but I'm just thinking, my goodness, how did you get through?
She had to find a coach to help her, and there was nobody willing or to give advice or anything to help her, so she was totally alone. And it made her very ill.
It forced me to have to look for a new situation. That coaching situation didn't last very long. It was very unpopular at the time. So I had a lot of headwind from the media about the East German coach at the time.
Denise was just... Ooh, they treated her really badly.
I felt the full opposite of love and adoration at that time. It was everything but that. And still, you try and find a way.
She was ill. She had to have, her blood pressure went really low. She had to have injections. And it was all the stress of all of how she was treated here in our country, who she represented and got a medal for. They didn't treat her well at all.
I was determined to get back, and in defense of my title, I still wanted to compete. My body wasn't great, There was no one underpinning and a checklist to say, okay, have you done that enough? Have you rebuilt the soft tissue enough to get back? It was like, just get on with it. And I was back to being a competing athlete again with just a baby in tow.
One of the reasons why I did retire when I did is because I wanted a family. And I felt that my sport at the time didn't allow me to have a family and to be able to come back. That's what I admire with so many of these athletes now, that, you know, Jess and people like that, they're just, you know, they've had the children to be able to go out and experience that. And I would like to have had my children around to have watched me do that. I think that's quite something.
Examples like Jessica Ennis-Hill, who had a baby and then went on to win a world title, confounding everybody, are really, really important. I suppose what I wonder is if Denise had been born at a different time, would she have been treated differently?
You got yourself to 2004 Olympics?
Yeah.
And what happened there?
I got injured very early in that year. Had it not been the Olympics, I wouldn't have even attempted to be there.
At what stage did you decide that that was enough, time's up?
I think because I was left bitterly disappointed of not being able to finish the heptathlon in Athens. I felt embarrassed, if I'm honest, really embarrassed. Again, no one reached out to me, Judy, and it's incredulous to me now thinking no one cared. It didn't feel like anyone cared, that I was agonising and hurt.
That was very dark and very upsetting. And it was tough.
My grandmother got sick as well at that time. She passed away very early in 2005, and that was me. I was done.
Coming up next on Driving Force.
My athletics career has given a great deal of inspiration to others.
What I think Denise did was she gave permission for women to not just feel that they were going to do something that Daley Thompson did, that they were doing something that Denise Lewis did.
Keep it close. 8, 7.
When you were coming through the ranks, there weren't so many female athletes from Great Britain who had gold medals. When you look now and you see, you know, more female medalists than men, how does that make you feel, knowing that you were a huge part of that?
Yeah, I think it's a great sense of pride. I think visibility matters. My athletics career has given a great deal of inspiration to others.
Denise is the queen. Simple as that.
When you think sport and you think achievement, you think Denise Lewis. She achieved, obviously, to the very highest standards and level, and she carried herself in such a way that you couldn't help but like her as well.
The true role models out there are the genuine people. In somebody like Denise, you get somebody who is really authentic. She is a great lady.
It is no accident that there has been a stream of really successful black sportswomen in the wake of the trail that Denise really made.
If you can see it, you can be it.
Yeah, and it's that, for me, is the biggest driver for women now, that, you know, you can stand shoulder to shoulder with more women doing really well, and your life choices can be changed because there is a pathway that is available to you.
Denise's story is incredible and impressive, and the fact that having children and keeping that amazing career she has made possible is something to celebrate.
One of the many things that you have gone on to do post-career is become the president of Commonwealth Games England.
I see my role very much as somebody who's hopefully inspiring and influencing other athletes to think about their post-career life. If you want to see change, you've got to be at the table with the other decision makers. And for too long, we haven't had enough women doing that.
Any championships is very lucky to have Denise, and it's an important one too, because the great thing that athletes have is that they see the world through the eyes of the athletes.
When you go to, usually in boardrooms of federations and all that kind of stuff, it's usually businessmen, it's usually people that have never really played the sport, but that's been probably the biggest part of her life.
No one else can change sport, but we can, because we know what we did right and wrong and show them what is possible. Because in myself, I think if you work hard, if you stick at it, you can achieve a lot of things.
It's basically unlocking people's minds and young girls' minds to what is achievable. And if you see it, and it goes back to what you said, if you see it, you can be it. It's very much about diversity as well. You have to be pretty silly not to understand that and get that by now.
That different lens, that different perspective is so, so important at leadership level. Women, black women, look at Denise Lewis and take a lot of inspiration from just the way that she radiates positivity and this can-do attitude, which I just think is phenomenal.
What do you think we need to do to keep more girls in sport?
I think it's hard depending on which sport you are into. We lose a lot of women and young girls when they actually feel that they're excluded because they're not as good as everyone else, so they drop off. And so we have to be mindful that we try and keep as many people in feeling good about sport as possible. So that might be just, what sports are you choosing at school?
We need to try lots of different sports, which I know now they sometimes go to the gym. It's hard, isn't it? But the whole cross-country and the effect that it had on so many girls wanting to give up sport, you know, I don't think that's quite right. I don't think they should be doing that. It shouldn't be forced.
First of all, you've got to get the parents wanting to take their daughters to sport. When I speak to parents at school, so many of them, their daughters are doing gymnastics, dance and swimming, and that's it.
When it comes to my little girl, Willow, getting her involved in sport is a must. I want her to try loads of different sports. I want her to do what she enjoys doing, so if I give her the option of loads of different stuff, she'll pick that.
My kids are everything to me, family, and often as a parent, you just want to be able to support them and support them what they want to achieve, and all my kids are different. I don't go, oh, you need to do sport. She does exercise, and as long as she stays fit and active, I think that's the key. But at the same time, whatever they do, I just as a parent, just encourage them to keep working, keep grafting. There'll be at times where things hasn't gone well, you go through that patch, but just pick them up and keep encouraging them.
Because it's not just about sport, is it? It's actually about the variety of things that give you physical activity.
Physical activity, your well-being,
dance, music.
And makes you feel alive. And so it might not just be the traditional sports that we're thinking of, but finding something new to make you feel good and something that you can stick with and think about your long-term health.
What I learn and what every kid learns as a youngster, sometimes you can't teach it in anything else. Teamwork, individual work, discipline, dedication.
We can make a difference. It doesn't matter. By sports, you can learn a lot. By sports, we come as one. And that's the most beautiful thing.
You are a huge role model for women and girls, not just in athletics. But what would be the values that you would most want to have instilled in those who want to follow in your footsteps?
My mum has always told me that you don't get anything in life without working for it. So that investment in yourself is crucial. Unlocking your own potential is about finding a way to make things happen. Don't settle.
She likes to try things, and if she don't succeed, she'll try harder. She's not a quitter.
What I think Denise did was she gave permission for women to not just feel that they were going to do something that Daley Thompson did, that they were doing something that Denise Lewis did.
She took it and made it her own thing. So she wasn't a Daley Thompson clone or whatever. She was an original Denise Lewis.
She's done so much, not just for the world of sport, but for all of us within TV, media, and everything that we're covering.
I am proud, but you don't realise how much joy it gives to other people. Denise, the caring soul, the light that brings happiness to people's lives.
Denise, I'm blown away by that. I learned so many things about you. I thought I knew it all because I'd stalked you for so long. And it's been an absolute privilege for me to spend this time with you. Thank you for being on Driving Force.
Thank you, Judy.